The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
We're having a little bit of difficulty here this morning.
What's new? Live television.
What's new? Live television,
Welcome
exactly.
to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday, and I'm back.
Thank
Back to
God
the
it's
Riv,
Friday.
where there's always entertainment. Never a dull moment in the Riv.
I guess there was a lot of entertainment this morning with car accidents and the usual Fall River nitwits driving.
Yeah, there was an accident down at McGowan and Eastern Avenue, right just before the overpass over 195, and it snarled up traffic for a while. They had the entire that section of Eastern Avenue blocked off, so you couldn't get to the ramp to get on the highway. So it was it was Fall River. Nice to be back, up in a mundane Cape where people just walk around, spend money, and
don't wear socks.
A lot of tourists, even without the benefit of a streetscapes. There are a whole bunch of tourists already down there, even though it's only early June. They've already begun with the tourists down there in the tourist season. But back home to where there's never a dull moment. So
never a dull moment in Fall River.
Again, we see the streetscapes raises its ugly head again, and the battle rages on.
Which is kind of normal for Fall River, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we are not going live via YouTube today. Our stream died, I just noticed. So if we come back online, they'll be able to watch it. But the show will be up online by 1 o'clock. So I just wanted to let our viewers know.
Again.
Yeah.
Is it sabotage?
It's the Russians. It's the Russians.
The Russians. The Russians are sabotaging it because I'm back and I don't have any vodka. So
that's it.
Like we got to bribe them with some vodka.
Das Vidanya.
That's it. Das Vidanya. Yeah.
Hey, I kind of gave our viewers a small taste of political welfare. And I'm wondering, Chip, seeing that you know a lot about political welfare, if you can fill us in on some of this shenanigans going on in city political welfare office. I know that we're going to change the name of the government center to the Department of Political Transitional Assistance. So,
well, it's the sad part about it is it's business as usual. It's just another political hack, taking advantage of the system. We hear about, the retirement system being a tremendous burden, an unfunded liability. But what we don't hear is that much of that unfunded liability has been created by politics and by the political machinations of the all the people who are involved and who are friendly and who are getting things that they really, technically, as far as I'm concerned, really, they haven't earned. When somebody spends 30 years, 35 years working in the city hall, or 35 years picking up trash, or 35 years fighting fires, and or being a police officer, or whatever, or a corrections guard if it's on the state level. You've earned your pension. You put in the time, you earned your pension, and hopefully you get to enjoy it. But the problem is that some of those people, at some point in time down the road, as much as hard as we fight to maintain the integrity of that system, they will ultimately see what happened in Rhode Island. They're going to have pension benefits cut. And unfortunately, it's going to be because of politics. We see an individual now who took a full-time job in order to get the health care attachment. We've seen people who have moved from the state house over to cushy state jobs, be they in colleges or the educational system. Billy Bolger went from his state senator pension up to the president of UMass Dartmouth, where he was getting $325,000, and now he has one of the highest pensions in the state of Massachusetts, even though he didn't hold that job for an extended period. You know, we see it all the time. We see state senators and state reps getting other jobs when they leave to bump up their pensions. We see people that don't belong in the pension system be put into the pension system because of politics. We see people's categories changed, all to allow them benefits that other people had to work in that profession for 30 years to get, or 35 years, or 32 and a half, depending on your factor. But, you know, it's ironic because, you brought that up, CJ, and I just came back from, the state Macros conference and the Massachusetts Contributory Retirement System conference. And we had basically seminars from actuarials, and we went over cases about how these things affect the pension system, early retirement, and stuff.
Do you mean people who do know actual numbers?
Yeah, actuarials. Yeah, that's what they call them. Actually, they actuarially do. Yeah, but this is the thing, and this is the irony of the whole thing. The people who use the excuse that the pension system costs too much are the people who really contribute to the system being this costly and not being fully funded. Cities and towns that don't put in their money on time, don't put in sufficient money, and then the state creates all these, and some cities do, early retirement packages. And as I said, in a perfect world, everybody should get to retire at 50 and have a long, happy retirement with, 100 or 110% of their pay. That would be nice if we could do it, but we can't. We see what happens to Social Security. They have made the retirement age older. Why? Because people are living longer. And the unfunded liability is based on how long people are in the system and how many people are in the system. So they give early retirements, and they let everybody retire early and buy back time and stuff, and it's great for those people. I'm not going to say it isn't. However, do they use anything to cushion the impact of that action? No. They just burden the system, increase the unfunded liability, and then at some point in time, they're going to do exactly what they did with the health care. Oh, this is too expensive. We're going to take benefits away from you all, increase your co-pays, and give you a crappy health care plan. Not because of anything you did, but because of the way we mishandled the entire system. It's going to happen at some point in time in Massachusetts. At the National Convention, I saw a picture of people with signs, holding signs, don't take away my pension, don't cut my pension, I earned my pension, and a lot of them, they're right. But the fact is, government doesn't care. Government siphons off the money. They give early retirements because it'll allow them to bring in more people who pay more into the system, and they get a short-term bump, just as in the health care, we got rid of the PPO and moved everybody to the HMO. We have a short-term savings. But ultimately, that HMO will become just as expensive, and they will begin to cut benefits in that HMO. And the same thing with the pension system. They do things for short-term gain, knowing in the long term they're destroying the system. They will ultimately get an unfunded liability that will never be paid off, because the fact is, when this pension system that we have in the state of Massachusetts, and I was very friendly with one of the individuals who was one of the architects of this, John Jennings. He was an International Association of Firefighters trustee. He was the chairman of the Boston Retirement Board for decades. One of the most brilliant men I ever saw when it came to pensions. He helped do this system. He helped work on it. This system was scheduled to be paid and fully funded, where it was no longer a burden, by 2010. It's 2017. There are very, very few pension systems in this state that are funded. Pension systems like Fall River actually went down from 80%, close to being fully funded, down to 40. We're beginning our way up. We've made an agreement to get it funded by 2035. I'm betting it's not funded by 2035 because they are going to not pay. We see this year's budget, then they haven't fully funded what PARAC told them to fund. So already, the first year after we make an agreement to cure this problem, the city already is trying not to pay the full amount, which means that what's happening? By 2035, we will not be fully funded. And if they continue to do things, it's going to be a point where somebody says, we got to cut benefits, like they did in Rhode Island. This isn't a theory. We've seen it happen in many states. And, this is the thing. CJ, I know you said, that this individual who's been on the...
I named her. I did name her.
The Housing Authority Board for 20 years, while they were doing audits, which we proved that almost every year were incorrect. I mean, yeah, and look, I'm just stating the fact. Maybe they don't remember, but I remember when they found a healthcare, they found 3 healthcare accounts that had been dormant for 25 years.
Right.
And guess who did the audit? Hagen Sahadi.
Yeah.
But they missed those accounts. They were dormant. So what kind of audit was that? We also had an audit where it was $1.5 million in the wrong. It was in the employer fund when it's, and they missed that too. And, but yet, while they were not doing their due diligence, she was a commissioner for 20 years, building up time toward retirement. And they put the commissioners in the retirement system. Why? I don't know. Political appointees, not public employees who were working. They got a appointed job, and they get put into the system. And now she's going to move into the system full time, and then she's going to get her health care benefits and stuff. And, hey, she's entitled to it. If she's entitled to it, she will get it. But the fact is that being entitled to it doesn't mean you deserve it. And that's a very important distinction. As I said, you show me somebody who worked for 30 years or 25 years or whatever, and they get a pension based on their time of service, I believe they deserve it. When you show me somebody who worked for a token stipend for 20 years and then they slide over to a full-time job and then they jump their pension up by 600%, to me, well, guess what? That's kind of scamming the system. That's gaming it. You're gaming the system. And whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. And that's what hurts the system. It helps the people who get in. I'll give you a personal case that always disturbs me. I was on a fire department with a guy who fell off a 100-foot area ladder during a fire. And the fire was on Rodman Street, and he fell off a 100-foot area ladder. He was at the top. He came crashing down on the pedestal and broke, I don't know how many bones. Nearly died. He had to retire because he couldn't be a firefighter any longer. He sustained so much damage to his body that he had to get a disability retirement. That's what a disability retirement's for. And I see that guy now who's been retired for so long living on a very, very small pension because he wasn't an old guy. He hadn't been on a job that long. But he got injured protecting the people of Fall River, and now he's got an absolute crap pension. He's not making that much. And I see other people like this who are politicians, didn't do anything except get in the right chow line, and they walk away with the max and everything, and they figure out a way to game the system. And that disturbs me because, you know, you can say that I shouldn't be worried about this, but I take my fiduciary responsibility to the system seriously. I'm there to make sure that the people who've earned a pension have a pension system left. You know, the 20-year-old, 25-year-olds in the city departments today are not thinking about the time when they hit 60 or 55 or 65, depending on their retirement age. They're not thinking about whether they'll have a pension system that's viable. They're going to think about, they're only thinking about today. But when they get there and somebody decides to cut their benefits, they're going to look back and say, you know, we should have tried to be a little bit more objective and think about, you know, the long term. So is it, you know, is what she's doing wrong? No. It's legal. Is it the right thing to do? I don't think so, at least in my personal opinion. It's my personal opinion. You can say, hey, it's right. Grab everything you get. If you can scam the system, go ahead and do it. You know, and I don't believe people that didn't earn it should get it.
Happy days are here again.
But like I said, you know, what she is doing is not something that hasn't been done.
No.
You know, and it continues to get done.
We have a former senator. Yeah. They're naming a bridge after her. I guess that's for everyone to jump off of when the pension system collapses.
Yeah, and then we get all their relatives. It could because
right.
It is like a welfare system. People talk about welfare and being generational. It goes from generation to generation to generation, and so does political
appointments.
So does
hack jobs.
Political hackery.
Yeah,
and it's like you look at this senator that they're naming a bridge after. When she left her nice, cushy job, virtually a no-show job to make big bucks at a state college, which I happen to be sitting in right now, who got the job?
Her daughter.
Wow. All in the family. It's like Archie Bunker. And where does the person who's going to get the $30,000 plus pay raise, where do her children work?
The city of Fall River.
Bingo. So don't, see, this is what gets me. People are very myopic. They get very disturbed when somebody used to get a block of cheese. I know they don't give those cheese blocks away anymore.
Hey, that cheese was really good. We used to have it at camp.
It was good, yeah. It was good.
That was military cheese, and that was really good cheese.
They had a black market selling that cheese, I'll tell you. It was good cheese. But it used to always get me, it used to amaze me when I used to see people getting really upset because somebody got a block of cheese that they couldn't get, and they vilified those people.
Oh yeah.
But yet you get politicians that steal everything that's not nailed down, that take advantage of every loophole. As I said, have we already forgotten what the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House got for stipends? $80,000 from $35,000, they raised it to $80,000 and $70,000. No, have we forgotten the $35,000 stipends and the pay raises the reps gave us while not giving us a tax holiday, while telling us the state's in financial trouble? Well, that, you know, I'm not saying not be upset if somebody doesn't belong on welfare, but be upset when people don't belong in the pension system that are in there either. You know, that's the point. The point is, let's look at what they do. Politics has become a welfare system that transcends the individual. It goes on from generation to generation, because after they get the job, it's normally their children get a job, and their children's children will be working.
I'll quote a city councilor, 8 generations.
And never a job. Look, I don't have a problem with 8th-generation police officers or 8th-generation firefighters. They took an exam. They competed. They got a mark high enough to get put on a job.
Right.
So that's not a problem. But when you get 8 generations of of appointed jobs, I got some serious questions about that. You know, now you're saying, well, you're kind of waving the red flag in front of me, like, look, we've been doing this, we've been sucking the political dole, the political welfare system for 8 generations, and it's difficult to understand, and we see this administration seems to be replete with giving out more and more and more at the expense of the taxpayers. Because the way I see it, it's the hell with the potholes on the residential streets. Let's give all our money to all our friends.
And why is that?
Screw you, taxpayer! Yeah, and I'm sure you've been doing some digging into some of these other things.
Oh, of course. And by the way, people, as many of you know, Fall River does have a resident requirement. And effective this month, this lovely month, Falls Fiore has to establish city residency. And there are several people, while they're covered under the grandfather clause in that are not covered under it. And they are not residents. They get 18 months, which I think is too extensive, personally. So, Mr. Fiore, I know you're watching. Have you established your residency in Fall River yet? Because if you haven't, I'm going to ask that the city council have you removed, because you, sir, are not a resident, and that is city ordinance.
He's living in a post office box. Leave him alone.
Well, I guess it's better than a refrigerator box.
That's right. Remember they got that new movement down in some of the retirement states of these mini homes. They show them on television where it's like one room and everything's like piled in, because it's very economical. So if they establish residence, it's really not it's probably a post office box.
Yeah, well, you know, and people are like, why do you pick on all these people? And I went through this yesterday too with somebody. Why do you pick on all these people? I'm not picking on them. The law is the law. If I violate the law, they're going to cite me, arrest me, fine me. But because they're political whores, because they're a bunch of political whores, they can break the law? This city does it every day. They violate their own regulations. They violate their own ordinances. They violate the CMR on a regular basis, but that doesn't matter. Because you, the taxpayers, got to pay for it. Because remember something, if it's illegal and they approve it and they do it, now it's become perfectly legal. And this is the problem we have. Because you, the taxpayer, are not holding them accountable.
Yeah, well, you know, they cover it well, because you never see these hirings. They're not publicized. And as I said, you know, Fall River has one of the highest unemployment rates, and most of the time the highest unemployment rate in the state of Massachusetts. You're telling me that we couldn't find jobs that were given to these people who live in another community? We couldn't find anybody that could walk around and be a quote-unquote, what is it, press...
Nobody knows what his job is anymore. It's changed so much that, and he's actually doing part of Monica Souza's job, which she's being paid for. He got a $5,000 bump for doing that job. Well, wait a minute. Did we take that away from Monica? Did we take that $5,000 away from her, who violates federal law every day? Again, nobody's holding her